Welcome to the She's All That video podcast, inspiring, entertaining conversations with women doing awesome shit, making change, and living life their way. Conversations that'll leave you thinking, damn, I'm glad I heard that. I'm your host today, 𝒑𝒏𝒂𝒕𝒂𝒍. There is a worsening but little recognized crisis in the maternal health world in the U.S., and maternal mortality rates have risen to 2 and 3 times that of other wealthy nations. My guest today, Tara Thompson,
She's all that.
in this year of pandemic and social upheaval, has made it her business to do what she can to change that. Listen in as we explore this important issue and find out how Tara is using her talents, experience, and her newfound tech savvy to affect change and save lives.
She's all that.
Today, I am so thrilled to have Tara Thompson of Tara's Birth Services with me here today. Tara is a prenatal and postpartum massage therapist. She's a childbirth educator. She's a doula, and she's passionate about making a change and making a difference for women in their pregnancy experience. But I have to say before we get started, Tara, the reason I'm so excited to have you on my show is you were part of my inspiration for this entire podcast. I remember after we met and I heard your story, I thought, oh, people need to know about this woman.
Oh, thank you.
So now, as I said, Tara's a prenatal and a postpartum massage therapist and educator and when a lot of us think about birth, where we have, like fluffy bunnies and decorating the baby room and it's all sweet and nice, but it's more than just having a lovely, warm and fuzzy birth experience. There are some really compelling reasons why what Tara is doing is making a huge difference in the world. And it's really important because I'm going to geek out a little bit here. Since I had my kid and got really into the stats about what's going on with pregnancy and maternal mortality in the States, amongst developed countries, the U.S. has the highest maternal mortality rate. In 2018, for the latest numbers they've got, there were 17 maternal deaths, 17 women dying for every 100,000 live births. And this is more than double what it is in any other wealthy country in the world. And it's also double what it was 30 years ago. So the situation's getting more dangerous for women having their babies. For Black and Indigenous women, they're 2 to 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. And rural women are much more likely to have complications and a fatal outcome than urban women because of their distance from their doctors. So it is like for no small reason that what you're doing is so important. Tara, you had been working in a hospital doing all these things for the last 13 years. You just went and created your own business this year.
Yes.
First of all, why in the middle of a pandemic did you decide to create your own business around this?
Because, and that's why, in the middle of a pandemic. So while I was working at the hospital, when the pandemic started, back in March, everything was shut down. So as you mentioned, I'm a massage therapist also. That was stopped. Also teaching the classes, that stopped as well. So I sort of had a little vacation where I can kind of sit back and evaluate what's going on. And of course, in the US, everything that's going on, the whole racial disparities and everything that started, brought on a lot of, just like I said, thinking, a lot of time, a lot of downtime. And it's like, okay, what can you do? I didn't want to go out, as far as protesting and doing different things like that. So I said, how can I help? And being that I do what I do, as far as helping women. And like you mentioned, the numbers in the US are horrible. And Black and indigenous women, we have 2 to 3 times more. So that's when it hit me, or I should say, when God told me, listen, you need to, this is what you should be doing. This is the way you should be going. Because of course, in the beginning of the year, I thought I was going some other way. And then all these things that he was putting into me, it was like, okay, you need to go out and start doing these things. You need to help as much as you can. And I just couldn't do that in the hospital. I felt that it was a conflict of interest. So that's why I said, you know what, I need to step away from the hospital. This is not where I should be doing it. I'll be telling them, don't go there, don't go there. Because unfortunately that hospital that I was working at had very high numbers in the state of Georgia, as far as the, cesarean rates and different things like that. So I felt I needed to step away from there and then, teach and educate and inform as many people as I can.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I'm in Canada, so I'm a little bit familiar with the medical system in the States, but just by what I've read and researched, Was this a private hospital or a public hospital?
No, it's a private hospital.
So private hospitals, it has to be remembered, are businesses.
Yes.
And there is a bottom line, and you're not the bottom line.
Exactly.
You're not the big focus.
Exactly. Yes.
But so you started your business. So you had been doing, prior to that, you had been doing evidence-based birth classes.
Yes.
But you told me that the first time. I remember thinking, what? So obviously it's something that's very helpful to pregnant women, but what is evidence-based birth classes?
Yes. So like you said, a lot of people get that reaction like, okay, so what is that? But it's just like it sounds. It's the information is based on evidence. So it's not just, information where you just dug up from somewhere or, people just put this together. Her program, and then the person that started the program, her name is Rebecca Decker, and she's a RN that went and got her PhD because of, everything that she went through with childbirth. And she realized that this should not be happening, and she was a nurse doing that. And she realized it shouldn't be happening. So she started the program, and all of the information is research-based. So with evidence-based, it's sort of like 3 legs on a stool, where you have the patient's goals, that's one of them, where that's very important because it's not just, what's happening, but you want to make sure that you're getting what you want, right?
From your provider, you mean?
Yes,
okay.
From the whole, just birth, pregnancy, the whole situation, everything, so it's the patient's goals. It's the providers, their research, their background, their so everybody's on the same page, for lack of a better word. So, as far as everybody, you and your provider believing in the same things, okay? And following research as well, making sure that they're staying on top of the research also. It's not just them, because some providers maybe have been doing this for, 20, 30 years. But research, evidence, information changes. So you can't still be doing the same thing that you've been doing 30 years ago, okay?
Yeah.
So again, your provider being on the same page and following the research also.
So this is what you're teaching people.
Up to date. Yes, exactly.
So it's what's happening to you, what to expect when you're expecting kind of thing, but also how to do your research and make sure you've got the best people on your team.
Exactly. Because that all makes a difference, as far as what you're doing, because a lot of times when you are, having a child, and I don't know your situation and everything that happens, but a lot of times you may not see your provider, and it could be different in Canada. So I can't really say that, but a lot of times here in the US, you may not see your provider until it's actually time to push. So all of this that
wait, what? You go through the 40 weeks of all that stuff that's happening to you and all the changes, and you don't see the person who's actually going to be there for the big moment until the big moment?
When you are in labor, yes. A lot of times you go to the hospital, and this is why a lot of people turn to home birth too during the pandemic, but that's a whole nother story. But you go to the hospital and your provider may not be there. For one, a lot of times there's providers have shared calls. So that provider that you loved so much may not even be on call that time. It could be another provider that you may not have even met before. Okay, that's one thing. And then when you go to the hospital, a lot of times that, the nurses are there, they're asking questions and they are in contact with your provider. So you don't even have that contact. Maybe when you're at home and you call, you're like, hey, I think I'm in labor, I'm feeling something. And they're explaining like, okay, we'll go to the hospital. From when you get to the hospital, now the nurses are in contact with your provider. So you're not in contact with them anymore. And now the nurses are sort of taking care of you and they're going back and forth with the providers. So you may not see the provider until you're actually pushing. So meanwhile, that's not in all the cases. Okay.
So
I'm not saying, go ahead.
In a case like that, who's actually the person there with the woman who's going through this incredible, transformative, biggest event in your life kind of thing? Who's there with her if they're off there doing this second and third party communication about you?
That's why we always encourage the moms to hire a doula, because basically a doula is labor support. So when you hire a doula, so even I'm a doula, but I also worked for the hospital. But when I was hired by couples, I was working for the couples. So I did not have on my hospital hat, while I was there at the hospital, if they were at the hospital, and I can go to different hospitals, but you work for the couples, so that is support for you. They can meet you at your home or they can be at the hospital, but that's continuous support. So between your partner and maybe a doula, then that's continuous support. Other than that, like I said, the nurses are the ones that's there. And you may not have met this nurse before ever in life. They don't know anything about you,
And they're in and out.
Exactly. A A lot of hospitals, it's a 2 patient to 1 nurse ratio. So they're not even with you all the time. When I worked at the hospital, I shadowed nurses. And it's one of the reasons why I've been so back and forth. Like I've taken some classes and I'm like, no, this is not what I want to do. But the paperwork is horrible. For one, they have so much paperwork to do that they can't be with you all the time. And like you said, you know, it's 2 patient to 1 nurse ratio in most places. So they can't be with you all the time. And
so 2 patients plus paperwork.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I actually spoke to a nurse and I was like, why would you leave? Because she left to become a doula. And I was like, why would you leave labor and delivery? You know, you were right there. And she was like, you don't realize that it's not just 2 patients to 1 nurse. They said, you know, when mom is pregnant, they're monitoring mom and the baby. So now it's 4 patients.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of paperwork for one. You know, it's just a lot. It's really a lot.
So you kind of actually are educating these new moms to be in that whole area too. Like kind of, this is part of what to expect when you're expecting that you might not even have thought of. So that you're kind of getting them in the zone of reality of what we need to do to make sure we have our own best experience.
Exactly. And you never know, like for one, the nurses are human.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you know, they could be having a bad day when you go in. You don't know their training, their background, now, are they on the same page with you? Now, maybe you sat with your provider and you've had these conversations with your providers and everything is great. You guys are on the same page. But now when you go into the hospital, is this nurse on the same page? What does this nurse believe? So that's another thing also.
Does that relate to the comment you had made? You gave me some background information on some deeper stuff beyond what we had talked about originally. And a couple of times you'd mentioned that you want the people who work with you, the moms who work with you, to be making choices from informed decisions and not the choices of your providers. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Yes. And like I said, another thing with the evidence-based birth, because it is research. Now you have the information for up to 3 to 6 months. That's your choice, whatever you choose when you get the information. And
sorry, what information is this?
So with the classes itself. So the classes are virtual. Okay.
Yes. And that's perfect for right now. And you can help anybody anywhere.
Exactly. Yes. So the classes are virtual. And then it's sort of like a flipped classroom. So I'm also a Lamaze childbirth educator. So I taught, Lamaze for a couple of years, but with Lamaze, it was a training. And then like at the hospital, we had our little PowerPoint that we explained everything, they came in and then that was it. With evidence-based birth, you have the information and I'm more of a mentor. I'm not going to stand up there in front of the classroom explaining everything to you and letting it go in one ear and out the other. Okay. Because that's what happens a lot of times. Yeah. And it's broken up into different sections. And that's why I love it also, because you get like little video clips, like you have week 1, week 2, different things like that. So it's broken down. So you're learning on your own time. And that's why I say like the flipped classroom. So it's little video clips, of different things where you can kind of learn just whenever. You can binge watch if you want, if that's what you like. But
and you might want to go back and watch it again and again.
Exactly. So that's why you have access to this information. So either 3 or 6 months, you can choose whichever one.
And so when somebody's taking the course, they've got access to this for those periods of time. Mm-hmm. Do they also have access to live sessions with you or group sessions?
Oh, we do have 6 live sessions. And that's basically where you're just coming back and just going over the information. Like I said, I'm more of a mentor, so, okay, so I've watched this, but I really don't understand this. Can you explain this? People may have questions. People may, just going over the work that we've got, or maybe I'm asking questions that maybe they didn't think about when they were watching it. So then they'll go over and we'll have that conversation and like, oh, I'm going to watch it again now, hearing this, just a couple of things. I like to give my input as a doula also, because a lot of hospitals here now are not allowing doulas. So you only have
Why?
The pandemic. They only allow
right.
one support person. So
God.
Partners, but I'm thankful that they are getting that one support, because I remember in New York when it first happened, they weren't allowing any support people at all.
Oh my God.
Yes, exactly. And imagine how I feel. And I do this for a living. And you see how you are right now.
No, I'm just thinking of some poor woman, especially if it's your first time going through childbirth.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
That's why these classes, are so important, to kind of educate yourself. The biggest thing I always tell my couples is try to stay home for as long as you can. You want your shortest part of labor to be in the hospital. Yeah. The earlier you go in, and see, they don't realize it or they don't think about it. When you're going into the hospital, legally, they have to start doing things to you. It's not a hotel.
What? Tell.
Because listen, it's not a hotel. You can't just go and, okay, I'm checking into a room and don't worry about us. We'll just be in here. They're not going to do that. when you
Why?
go into the hospital, they're going to start monitoring you. They're going to start, like you said, this is when the dollars start coming in. Okay. So this is when we have to start putting down things on paper. We need a paper trail of what's going on, why you're here. We need to get paid for you being here. Okay.
So it's kind of like, let's get the work happening, but it's, as I recall from my hospital experience, all that stuff is just adds to the stress, and the lights are bright and cold and it's noisy and.
Exactly. Yes. This is my point. Exactly. This is what I try to teach a lot of people, and they don't think about this, they're thinking about a million other things, and it's rightfully so. But again, this is so very important that this needs to be thought of. This needs to be addressed. You need to have informed choices. You need to know your rights. They can come in, like I said, nurses are human. You don't know what the agenda is when they come in. They could be coming in to like, oh, I've got to go on break. So I need to get, I need to document to see how far along you are right now. So I need to do this check for you. But you're like, no, I don't want that. And you have that right to say no.
Now, that's another thing. I was very fascinated when we were talking that you had told me that what you have the right to know, to say, to do in that moment, when you're delivering your baby. That's a little gap that you really need to fill, because women don't really know until they're in that situation what to expect, and therefore where they can say no, or no, I prefer it this way, or could we do it that way? And you actually educate people on and prepare them for that moment, what their rights are and how to deal.
Yes, that's where the informed choices, the informed decisions come in. Yeah, because they're informed now. They know, no, you don't have to do this right now. No, I don't want this. I have the right to say no. Even if I signed a paper that said something else, I have the right to verbally say no.
Yeah, because yeah, and I think when we're thinking about it, when we're not pregnant or early in the pregnancy, you're like, yeah, I'm going to say this or I'm going to say that. But that moment of birth, or hours, depending on your experience, it's probably the most vulnerable you are going to be in your entire life. Yes. So having a plan and having some information ahead of time that doesn't require you to think through about what should I do, you kind of already have it all mapped out. That's really helpful.
Yes,
so with the people that are in your class, when they've got their 6 live, Zoom virtual sessions, they've got all of the materials and they can go over it again and again and again, which with Prego brain, you're going to want to go over it because you're probably taking in only half of what you would have any other time.
Yeah.
If one of your, what do you refer to them as, your clients or your
clients
moms?
Or couples, yeah.
Okay.
Clients, couples.
So if say a gal is feeling like, oh, I have a big question, does she have to wait until the live thing, or can she reach out to you?
I always tell them you can reach out to me at any time, email, text, phone call, whatever is easier for you. Yes, please. No, don't wait. And like you said, pregnancy brain is something. And for one, God forbid, if they didn't write it down, oh my goodness, they'll never remember what they wanted to say.
Yeah.
So yes, I always tell them, even after the 6 classes, even after then, I always tell them, please reach out to me if you have any questions. I had a couple in a class recently in my November session, and they had a situation where their provider, they were doing a home birth, and their midwife that they had chosen, they were due in January, like January 7th. The midwife that they chose, the partner retired. So their last birth was going to be December 31st. So they had to find another provider. Yes. So they were, texting, email, what can we, just asking questions. And then during that, they were like, you know what, I feel so much better. I knew what to ask, going into, I know to look for what I'm looking for and how to find someone else, so even, and I was like, please keep in touch with me, let me know. And then, we just stayed on top, but, anything that I can answer, please, I always tell my couples.
So that brings me to, that brings me to the question of, at what point in the pregnancy should a woman start thinking about, okay, maybe I should be connecting with a program or taking some classes or connecting with Tara? What's the right time?
Listen, they can connect with me anytime. Listen, I had a couple that actually reached out to me a couple of days ago, and they were 6 weeks pregnant, and they were like, I just want to ask you questions, you know, and I got on with them, and we had, you know, a very good conversation, and I described and went through a lot of different things because they wanted to know the difference between my classes and other classes and different things like that. So you can reach out to me at any time. But to take an evidence-based birth class, I usually recommend, say, early 20 weeks, so maybe like 22, 24 weeks, because, and a lot of people are like, well, isn't that too early? Because like you said, pregnancy, I may forget everything. For one, remember, you do have this information and you can get it for 6 months, okay? And two, say you're going through some information through the program, and then you're thinking, okay, I want to ask my provider this, I want to ask my provider that. Now you know what to ask when you go in, because a lot of times you're going in and for when your partner's not there. So if you didn't write it down, you probably don't remember anything that you were going to ask them. And two, they're rushing because we're in a pandemic right now. So they're not spending a lot of time in there with you, especially if it's an OB. A midwife, you may have more of a chance, but if it's an OB, they're really probably not going to spend a lot of time in there with you. So with this class, for one, you know what questions to ask when you go in, because you may not think like, I don't even know what to ask. And this way you're asking early on. So what if you find out that we're not on the same page? We're not thinking the same thing. They don't do what I want. What's going to happen? You know, I want to birth in this position, or I want to walk around, but they told me I'm going to have to be strapped to the bed when I go in. Like, you know, it's like a red flag. And this is where you know what to ask. And it's always good. You want to ask open-ended questions. You don't want to ask questions as far as to get a yes or no answer, because they'll say yes. Oh yeah, sure, we do this, sure, we do that. And then when the time comes, it's a different story. And again, a lot of people later on in their pregnancy think that, you know, and maybe it's too late for me to change providers now. So that's another reason why you want to start early on and not waiting until later on when you're thinking, oh my goodness, it's too late. I've been through my whole pregnancy with this person. I'm just going to stick with them.
So get the plan happening somewhere around, what did you say, 22 weeks?
About 22, 24 weeks, yeah. So early 20 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So they can do the classes, you said, they have materials for 3 months or 6 months. Yeah. Do you, just out of curiosity, do you tape the live sessions that you're having with them so they can see it?
Because of HIPAA, they're not allowed to be recorded.
Could they record them?
They're not supposed to. Because of HIPAA, they're not allowed to be recorded.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I would record them, but...
Because remember, they're not the only one. I mean, they can have a private class. And if they want to do that, that's fine. But remember, with the classes, it's usually other couples in there. So that's them giving their information as well.
Okay.
So
yeah.
we really, can't do that. And you remember, they have the recordings. So if there's something that they wanted to go over and look at something like that, as far as the information that they're getting.
Oh, the videos that are part of the class. Yeah.
They have those recordings.
Yeah. So let's talk about your trimester treats.
Oh,
so I've heard you talking about that, and when I saw it, I was like, what? And you said it's not like any other subscription box, and I thought, what's a subscription box? So tell me, what is this trimester treats?
So trimester treats is another thing, like I said, during my downtime. And it's something that had come to me like years ago. And it's like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. It's too much trouble. But when you're on a little vacation, unplanned, you have time. You can think about and do things. So trimester treats are my pregnancy subscription boxes. Now, like I mentioned before, there are other pregnancy subscription boxes out there, but most of them that I've seen are like monthly subscriptions. So say someone signs up. So have you gotten any subscription box ever? Like my daughter used to get a curl box. So it was like hair care products that she used to get every month. My oldest gave it to her as a birthday present. So it's a surprise. You don't know what it is, and it's just a box that you get of, random items.
Hopefully it's relevant random items.
Yeah. I like hair care, because the one is for hair care. So you're going to get random hair care items, and now in the beginning, you put the type of hair you have, different things like that. So it would be something that you would use. So pregnancy subscription boxes are, similar to that. Whereas, like I said, they have monthly ones, and those are the ones that I've really seen out there where it's like, okay, I'm pregnant. So it's a lot of, you may see a t-shirt, a water bottle. I've seen facial, I've seen a lot of random things in there.
Yeah.
But with mine, they're called Trimester Treats. So I separated it into trimesters.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I know that there are only 3 trimesters, but I actually have 4 boxes because the 4th trimester, has been coined as postpartum period, but that's a thing now, 4th trimester, because that's so important.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I included that. A lot of these items in these boxes, or most of these items in the boxes, came from me being a doula. So things that I've either suggested to my clients, have bought for my clients, just different things that, I think that they should have throughout their pregnancy, or things that I've seen over the years where in first trimester, I've got so many complaints of this, so many complaints of that. And I made sure that was in those boxes, in the first trimester box. Second trimester, you realize that now you're growing, you're starting to grow. So now maybe having a little aches and pains, different things like that. So that's a little focused on that, where they may be, for that. And that's the second trimester box. Third trimester is, okay, now, we're coming to the end, we're going to have a baby. So a lot of that is focused on the actual labor, things that you need when going through labor, your labor bag, different things like that. Maybe the gown that they have, I have included some labor dresses, because a lot of people don't want to wear their, the gown that's in the hospital that thousands of other people have worn before them. So, it's a gown that they can wear for birth, and then that's it, it has the flaps so they can still nurse,
Wow.
Yeah. So we have that. And in the 4th trimester, and I do want to mention that I like for the boxes to get to them prior to their trimester that they're going into, so with 4th trimester, I always say, it's good for them to get it before they actually have the baby, where people think that, I'll just wait until after they have the baby for the 4th trimester box because it's postpartum. But I like for it to get to them before they have the baby, because it's things that they can bring to the hospital also. There's like a perineal spray that can help them, and it's natural with herbs, that'll help. And it's different things like a mother's milk tea, and it's different things in there that helps them right after they have the baby. And it's immediately after they have the baby.
Stuff that a new mom would never even think of.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing.
Exactly. Because, and a lot of times, and this is why, like I said, I came to it, because a lot of times I get, things that they didn't tell me about, other things like, why didn't anyone tell me that this was going to happen? And here we have this, and this, this will help you.
Yeah. And do you know what? I mean, I personally hate shopping. So even if I did know about, if somebody gave me a list and said, buy all these things, or buy something that does this, I would hate to be out to here pregnant and having to be standing in the store trying to find all this stuff, that it comes to my house in a little box. And
yes. And then, online, it's just, once you click on one thing, it's like a million things pop up and you're like, what do I get? What am I supposed to do?
Yes.
Now I have this, now I have this. Now you have like 1,000 items. You're like, well, do I need this or don't I need this? So yes, but this coming to you. So you can purchase it yourself. Again, a lot of times it changes, so you never know what you're going to get, but it's things that you would use during that trimester. And just because of the pandemic, sometimes I may not be able to get some items that, so I may have to change it up a little. So that's why it's like, I don't list specifically everything in each box, and it's for that reason. And, or if someone that's having a baby, like even like going to a gender reveal, when I went to gender, I was like, okay, are you supposed to bring a gift? Like, what do you know?
Yay.
Like, you want to do something to have. So you can do like the first trimester box, or just purchase like the book. There's a book on my website called Babies Are Not Pizza, and Rebecca Decker actually wrote the book. Yes.
I love that title, Babies Are Not Pizza.
Babies Are Born, Not Delivered. And Rebecca Decker is the one that created evidence-based birth. She actually wrote the book. So I like to give that out first trimester with a little journal, and that's in that box. Because, when you're reading through the books, and like you said, pregnancy brain, you want to write this stuff down.
Yeah.
You can be asking from the beginning, these questions to make sure that you're going to get the care that you want. Even things like you said that you may not even have thought to ask.
And, I have to say, I journaled. Infrequently, but I journaled during my pregnancy. Oh, it is so amazing, right after the birth, but all through, all the years since. It's been really amazing to occasionally look back at it.
Yeah, a lot of people, they release that way. And with the trainings, we get like relaxation, meditation, different things like that to kind of help you. So yeah. And another reason why I love evidence-based birth, not to go back on that, but you can use this throughout life. Not just with you being pregnant. Like we mentioned, informed choices.
Yeah.
So I went to a little story. My youngest daughter, she's 18. So this year was the first year that I was not able to go into the doctor's office with her. I've been to all her doctor's appointments. And now this year, the pandemic, and she's like, oh my gosh, I gotta go in there by myself. Even the doctor's like, she's never been here by herself. So she's like, so what if, they make me get the flu shot, or what if, and I'm texting, I'm like, you have a right, you have informed choices. You can say no to anything that they, so this is something you can take with you. And I don't want them to think that, oh, I'll just be, pregnant for a couple of months. It doesn't matter. But this is such a big deal. It's so important to be educated, to be informed, and to know your rights. And like I said, you can take this with you just outside of pregnancy, just life in general.
And as you were saying that, I was thinking, the things to tell them what they might have to insist on their rights for. You don't want to be in this situation where it was like, okay, now we're going to do this, and you're like, can I say no? Does it have to be like this? So like you give them the heads up, and they walk into there informed. That's amazing.
Yes.
Now,
yeah. So empowered. Yes, I love it.
One of the topics we got into when we first met was the whole postnatal period, and about how important that is, and not just, it's not just, oh yeah, and this is important in postnatal blues. In the United States, the postnatal maternal mortality has, of course, increased, but interestingly, in the last 30 years, it shifted later into the postnatal period. Mm-hmm. So it's not like what we think about, let's be frank, dying in childbirth or the next day. It's like the big trend is out to 42 days afterwards. That's 6 weeks after the birth of the baby. Mm-hmm. Now, and you and I talked about that, and you said that's something that you are really passionate about, and you focus on that.
Yes. So they actually include up to the first year when they include the numbers for postpartum.
Yes.
Because things can happen, up within that first year.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's sad here in the US, a lot of times we just have 6 weeks for as far as, maternity leave. A lot of places it's just 6 weeks, and then they have to go back to work. So just say you give birth in the hospital, right? Especially now during the pandemic, they're trying to get you out of there. So you may be discharged 24 hours, maybe 48 for vaginal birth, and it could be up to 3 to 4 days for a cesarean. So you're discharged at 48 hours. You don't go back to the doctor for 6 weeks. So in between this time, 48 hours.
Who's watching you in those 6 weeks?
Is my point. No one. That's the point.
I remember those first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Exactly.
You need help. You need someone looking in on you.
Yes, it is so important. So I really love home births, because home birth midwives, they're there, the next day, 24 hours they're checking on you, and then 3 days, and then a week, and then 2 weeks. So they're back and they're on top of it, and they're checking on you. But most hospital births, they're not doing that. A lot of times, and it's, they'll tell you, oh, call us if you need us. So someone may be there if you call, but how do you know you need them?
Yeah.
You just had a baby. A lot of times with moms, and they're not focusing on themselves. They're all focusing on this baby. Nobody's paying attention to mom. I did an interview with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, after my first child, my mom came over 3 days later, and she was like, did you eat? And I said, no, I did. She didn't eat in 3 days. And she didn't even realize it, because all the attention is on the baby. So mom not eating, mom not taking a shower, mom's having a headache, and then realize that this is day 2, that this headache is still there. I took something, but it didn't go away. Mom could be dehydrated. It's just so many things. And like I said, nobody could be watching over, or she may think, oh, this should be happening because I just had a baby. I'm sure this pain is from me just having a baby.
You don't
so I'm
know.
Not going to call my doctor. Exactly.
You've got nothing to compare it to. This is a brand new experience, and as much as you might be a totally logical, rational person prior to that, like you're going to be thrown into a situation where daily hundreds of brand new things arise, and you've got to figure out: is this normal? Should this be happening?
Yes, exactly. So that's why postpartum is so important to me. Like I started a program called Postpartum Check-ins, where we sort of go in and just check in on the mom, and it's within that first 6 weeks.
Now,
so myself, I'm a CNA.
Yeah.
And then I have another friend that's a medical assistant. So we can actually do vital signs, because there's like postpartum doulas and there's other people out there. But again, if you don't know about them, you're not going to know to hire them. Okay. So there are some people that can check in on you. But they may not be able, like postpartum doulas, a doula is not supposed to do any medical procedures at all, any medical at all. So whereas CNAs or MAs, we are allowed to do vitals. So we can go in and check mom's vitals, you know, making sure, again, her temperature, you know, is not too high, making sure her blood pressure, because that's a big thing too, their blood pressure, and they don't know to check their blood pressure. They may not have a blood pressure machine. You're not taking your baby out in a pandemic to go to the grocery store to go check your blood pressure.
Yeah.
So a lot of things is happening. So we go in and we check, you know, we check their temperature, we check their blood pressure, and we bring them a bag of fruits and vegetables. Because again, you know, that is so important.
That's incredible. You were telling me that there's a program, and I've actually since read about it, in California where they've been doing that, and how successful that is and what an impact it's had, and that you're building up your program too.
Yes. So we started a Nourish in Atlanta program.
What's it called? Nourish in Atlanta?
Nourish in Atlanta. Yes. And the Nourish program actually the one that gave me that name. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. So like you said, I modeled after our program. It's in California, and it's called Nourish. Now, with their program is they have a lot of volunteers and a lot of, you know, funding and different things where they've been doing this for years, you know, just sort of building it up. So when they were able to launch it, they actually are able to give moms 6 weeks worth of food. And it's restaurants that gives meals, and it's, you know, so many. So when I called and I reached out to them and I was like, I would like to bring something here. And they were explaining all of that to me. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't have that. And they said, you know, so you can't use the name Nourish. They said, but you can use Nourish in Atlanta. I was like, I love that. Oh my gosh. So mine is because, you know, with me, I don't know about you, but with me, if I don't start small and I wait till it gets, you know, till I have to get there, I'm not going to start, because it's going to be so many things that's going to stop me and be like, no, and I'm never going to get there. So I said, I have to start where I am. So I just started with a bag of fruits and vegetables that I give to moms, you know, Black and Indigenous families, you know, like you said, the rural areas, somewhere where they may not have food, where they may not, you know, they may be eating a bag of cookies after they just had a baby, because that's all they can afford, you know, whereas the fruits and vegetables is what they need and helps with nourishment. Because again, postpartum, you know, nourishment is so important, especially if they're nursing.
Yeah,
you know,
that's for you and the baby.
Yes, exactly. So
yeah.
It's so important. So
yeah, I've noticed I'm kind of a big proponent of decent nutrition. Much as I don't like to cook, like I'm all about, and I think I got that way when I was pregnant, because I was reading, you know, into all the science and the tech and the numbers, and it was showing you, hey, in this week of this trimester, your baby's brain is doing this, it needs this, it needs this. And it really became apparent to me that what we eat as moms are the building blocks for what's going on with the development in that baby. And when you're nursing postpartum, that bag of cookies is probably not supplying Junior with the nutrition he or she needs.
Or like you said, you know, you may get like this jolt of energy, but then you crash, you know, in an hour, because now you have that sugar rush that you had, and now you don't have any energy for anything else. Whereas if you had some fruits or vegetables, you know, just, I mean, I would love to get to the point where I can provide 6 weeks. Oh my gosh, that would be so amazing.
That's the goal.
6 weeks, yes. If I can provide 6 weeks of food, cooked food.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that would be so amazing.
That would be seriously life-changing.
I know. Because
the time and energy.
I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there.
So do you have any ideas of how people can help you with this endeavor right now?
So yes, absolutely. So I do have a donation button on my website. So if they go to my website, you know, tarasbirthservices.com.
Yeah.
On the Nourish in Atlanta page, there is a donation button. So anything that's donated, of course, besides what PayPal or whoever takes out, all of that, you know, goes to the Nourish in Atlanta program. I had a friend of mine, she did a walk, Walking with Wings. It was for pregnancy and infant loss. And she did a walk, and then she donated money, and it was able to help some of the moms too. So, if anyone that wants to donate, you can always donate to this. And they asked me, where does the money go? How do you pick these people? So I have midwife friends, and other just networking or colleagues or just people that I know, birth workers that I can reach out to, and I know that they can tell me a mom that's in need or needs help, anything like that. So we definitely have places that it can go.
That is incredible. That is truly incredible.
Yeah.
What you've done since, I think it was the summertime, I remember seeing you having your, your last day at the hospital. What you've done since summer, you've launched and built this company that you've got, Tara's Birth Services, doing the evidence-based birth classes. that are going to give people what they need to know about what's happening with their bodies from a woman who's a doula and you're a CNA and you've been doing this for 15 years. You know about this. She's also going to give you the heads up on what you need to know, what you need to get in place ahead of time, and all about the rights that you're going to have to make a call on while you're in this situation. Education on what to expect afterwards. And then in addition, you've got the Trimester Treats thing. I'm not even pregnant and I want one. Just I'll give you a user review if you send me one. I'm taking that out. And Trimester Treats, and then Nourish in Atlanta. Well, first of all, when do you sleep? And that is just so amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Your mission of trying to make a difference for the pregnancy and postpartum period for women in the US. I mean, it sounds trite, but it's huge. Tara, thank you so much for coming on my show today and actually telling me all about this.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for what you do. And down below if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, you'll see all the links and all the information. If you would like to get in touch with Tara, if you'd like to know more about what she's doing, or order the Trimester Treats box for a friend, or you can share this with somebody that you think she's pregnant and she could probably use some support like she would get if she was dealing with Tara. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you so much for being with us today. Don't forget to take a look down in the notes to find any of the links to the goodies we talked about in today's podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel so you don't miss the next episode. Rate us or review us on iTunes or on YouTube, and share us with a friend that you think might just need a bit of inspiration to start doing her own awesome shit. Do you know an incredible gal that's all that you think the world needs to know more about? Head on over to our Facebook or our Instagram channel and DM me. Tell me about her. We'll see if we can't get her on the She's All That podcast.